Hello and welcome to Part 4 of our IRS Report Analyzer step-by-step tutorials. Last time you have learned how to load and prepare data by creating comparison groups. Now it's time to see what the groups are for. The files used in this tutorial are also available in the demo folder of your installation. I assume that you already have loaded a set of report files. If not, please check out the previous tutorials on how to import and group test reports first. If you have saved the data set in the last tutorial, you can now load it. All tabs are now enabled and we can go on with the analysis of our group data. Click on History and Statistics. Report Analyzer has now analyzed each of your created groups. Let's examine the contents of this page. The first thing you should know about it is that it offers two alternative views: a view that displays the measurement first and a group first view. If you mainly want to compare measurements within a single group, select Group First. In this mode, the group is selected in a drop-down box. After selecting a group, the comparison table will contain all measurements found in the selected group. The measurement first view instead shows a single measurement and its statistical values, but in comparison across all groups. The measurement itself is selected in the list on the left. Otherwise, both views provide the same information. For our next steps, we choose the measurement first view. All panels on this page can be freely moved and docked to each other. To move a panel, grab its title bar and drag it around. Notice the small target cross that appears. Drag the mouse over the target and release the mouse button. The panel will then be docked to the selected page. You can also arrange panels and tabs. To do this, drag the panel to the center of the cross. But we want to see the histogram and the history chart at the same time, so we drag it to the left side again. Now select a measurement from the list on the left side. You see that all other controls are updated immediately to reflect the data of this measurement. The comparison table lists the statistic values for this selection in different groups. For each measurement ID we can now see statistical properties such as count, minimum, maximum, average, limits, standard deviation, process capability values and much more. Slowly hover your mouse over the column headers for a brief description. Like in any other table, use the column chooser to select only the columns you need. The next important element is the measurement values list. It contains the raw data used for aggregation. Each line represents a measurement value from a single test execution. The related test report can be viewed by double-clicking a row. The summary area provides some helpful information about count and extreme values of some columns. You can also customize this information using the context menu. Again, use the column chooser to select only the columns you really need. The same data is also used for the history graph. All measurement values for the selected measurement are collected and ordered by their start time in this chart. Each point represents a measurement value of a single report file. When you slowly move the mouse over the data points, you will see a pop-up information including the value, time, serial number and part number for this measurement. By clicking on a measurement point, the detail view opens. It provides a list of all execution and step properties this measurement belongs to. You can also open the associated report. To close or open the detail view, click on the vertical button. The diagram has some additional options. There are switchable buttons that enable and disable them. From left to right. Show markers. Show the legend. Show the limits. Highlight the 3 sigma limits. Highlight values which violate the limits. Fill the area between the limits. By the way, you may have noticed that the comparison table contains some values that are grayed out and written in italics. This happens when the limit values are not constant, as in this example. In this case, the most critical limit values are used as a substitute value for calculating the process capability values, which are the highest lower limit value and the lowest upper limit value. Note that the range of found limit values is also visualized as vertical bar in the histogram chart, if the limits are not constant. The last button resets the zoom level. To zoom into the graph, simply either use the mouse wheel or move the zoom bands in the scroll bar, or press Shift and drag a rectangle with the mouse. If zooming is active, you can also move the visible area. To do this, either move the scroll bars or simply drag the area with the mouse. This works the same way in any graph and also in the histogram chart. You can also change the series style to whatever makes most sense for your data. Sometimes a point display gives a better idea about the value distribution. The next drop-down box specifies the source of the x-axis. To see all measurements simply next to each other, use index group. To use the absolute index position across all loaded executions, but without absolute time, use index global. To arrange the measurements using their absolute date and time, select timestamp. You sometimes can detect a time-value correlation, especially in temperature-related measurements. In special situations where you only have a small number of tested units, ordering by serial number can make sense. If you are unsure, we recommend to use the index group display as a default. You can also compare the graphs across the groups by selecting one of the multiple plot styles. The all-in-one mode will, as expected, plot the graphs of all groups into one panel. Depending on the number of groups and how different the data is, this will make more or less sense. In any case, we recommend to switch off at least the limits and their bands. The checkboxes in the legend will allow you to enable or disable certain groups. This selection is also retained when switching between measurements. The stacked vertical mode will create a separate panel for each group and stack them vertically. Zooming and moving is also possible and synchronized for all panels. The stacked horizontal mode works similar, but with horizontally stacked panels. This mode is especially helpful when groups contain the same variant but in different test modes. But in most cases the single graph will be the best choice. Last but not least, we have a histogram chart. It visualizes how the measurement values of the selected measurement are distributed. Therefore, an algorithm defines value intervals, so-called bins, and then counts how many values fall into each interval. The number of intervals can be either calculated automatically or have a fixed value. Configure the app settings value histogram groups to do this. Setting it to 0 will activate the automatic algorithm. The number of measurements in each bin is represented by a colored bar. The color additionally indicates the result status of the measurements. Green means passed, red means failed. If limits are defined, a blue chart will indicate the expected normal distribution. The upper and lower specification limits USL and LSL, as well as the nominal value XM, are displayed as a vertical red line. The detected mean value xg and the 3 sigma limits are added as vertical green lines instead. The last, but not less important functions concern the export of the data. If you just want to capture your current view for the selected measurement including the graphs, click on Report Current View. The created report will contain a summary page for the current measurement and the current group, the history graph exactly as configured, the histogram, and a list of all available measurement values. Use the Export drop-down button to choose an output format, or simply press PDF file to save your report. The information on this page is usually also used for measurement analysis reports, more precisely for Type 1 MSA reports. So let us create an MSA report from our data. Just click on Report Wizard to configure your report. Here you can specify which groups and measurements should be included in the report. As an example, let's choose the first 2 groups on the left. Also check some measurements from the right side. For our example, we want to create a report only for the resistance values and the timings. Do you remember? We already created a measurement filter for this set. If you have created the measurement filter in the last tutorial, you can now load it. Otherwise, simply check the required measurements manually or use the search box or table filters. In the Settings section you can specify a name. This will be your report title. Let's name it MSA Demo Report. The description is also added to the title page. In this case, we specify resistance and timing. The option Show IDs specifies whether the column with the measurement IDs should be included in the group overview table. For each measurement there is a separate page with a history diagram and a histogram, if this option is activated on the right side. If the Show Group Comments checkbox is selected, the group comments are printed below the group title pages, if any. To specify which individual measured values are to be included in the measurement pages, you can select either None, the first 100 or All. In case of All, you fine-tune the number of columns and also if the serial number should be included. However, be careful if you have loaded a lot of executions, the report can become very large. If you choose to include also the serial number, it will be added to the measurement value to allow an exact tracing to the respective UUT. In this case, we recommend to reduce the number of columns to a maximum of 5. Remember, each selected measurement will create at least a single page in the report. When you're done, click on Show Preview. You can now preview and navigate through your report. As you can see, it starts with a title page. Each selected group has an overview page, including all relevant analysis values. Each measurement has at least one page. The header contains the measurement ID, name and description as well as the range of serial numbers and the execution time. The table below contains all relevant statistics for this measurement. The history chart shows all available individual measurements, ordered by the execution start time. It also contains the limit values, if available. The histogram explains the distribution of the measured values in groups. The number of groups can be set in the app settings. Depending on the selection, a table with the individual measured values is displayed for the rest of the page or for the next pages if required. This is repeated for each selected group. At the end of the document you will find an appendix explaining all the formulas used and their parameters. Please make sure that the parameters match to the ones used by your company. You can and should define these parameters in the app settings before creating a report. If everything looks as expected, you can export the report by clicking the Export drop-down button. There are many different formats available including PDF, HTML, Word, Excel and even comma-separated values. We'll opt for PDF here. If you click on More Options, you can configure additional attributes for your PDF file. The title and subject will be filled in automatically. The default author can be specified in the application's Export Settings dialog. Let's save the file and see how it looks. Note that you can also specify your own logo for this report. This is also done in the export settings. Okay, I think you should have seen the main features of this page now. Don't forget to take a look at the application help and check out our other videos too. Thanks a lot for watching.